During the story of the game, we see Dutch starting to lose his mind. But why? So let's see some of the main 3 reasons why Dutch was slowly going crazy. Starting with the main reason, the stress. As soon as chapter 2 where we encountered the Pinkertons with Jack, you can see Dutch starting to get stressed. And as the game progresses, every time someone mentions the Pinkertons around Dutch, he seems visibly stressed. A perfect example of this is at the end of chapter 3, you can see Dutch is already fed up with everything going on and the Pinkertons. You gotta give it to Dutch though. Like, imagine your whole gang is getting followed and gunned down by organization, and that has to hit you in some kind of way. Now, Dutch tries to hide this extremely well. Well, in a few moments, they will slip, like at the end of chapter 5. And it's very simple, the Pinkertons started to kill a lot of members of the gang, but most importantly, Hosea, who was the mind of the gang. Now look, Dutch was the action, and yes, Dutch was extremely smart. However, a lot of issues came from not listening to Hosea. A perfect example was the Blackwater massacre. Hosea kept telling Dutch that he did not feel right about that job. However, Dutch went with his gut, and having Micah at his ear all the time didn't make things easier. Another one could be mentioned is that Hosea kept telling Dutch to not mess with Leviticus Cornwall because he's a powerful man with a shit ton of money. And yeah, Cornwall was the main reason why the Pinkertons were still a thing. So if Dutch listened to Hosea, first of all, most of the gang would still be alive, and most importantly, if they didn't rob that train, the Pinkertons would have never found the gang's location. The ear. Dutch seemed to be a pretty normal leader from the start, shown by some dialogues between gang members. But the huge downfall started with one member joining the gang who perfectly manipulated Dutch in every way possible. Micah joined the gang for only 3 months before he already tried to play Dutch. Micah was the main reason why the Blackwater mess happened. As I mentioned earlier, Dutch did the job because Micah told him it would be an easy job and they would make a lot of money. Shown by some dialogues, it's confirmed that Hosea and Arthur were planning on doing a different job of their own, with basically no risk and a lot of money. However, Micah got into Dutch's ear and the whole mess happened. During some later stages of the game, especially after Hosea's death, you can see Micah kinda sucking Dutch's dick on every way possible. For example, at the end of chapter 5, after Dutch says I need some time, Micah seems to get a little bit too close to Dutch. On almost every mission that includes Dutch, Micah seems to be on his side. And one of the most important scenes where we can see Micah has completely taken over Dutch is seen at the mission of Our Best Selves, The Lie. One of the most believable theories out of all. It's very simple. Dutch's whole plan was for the gang to fall over, and for him to stay on the top. We can see this from the start. His whole idea was for him to get all the money and live on his own. But again, his idea was for every single member to be killed, but it didn't go exactly to his plan, and he believed that Arthur was going to be a ride or die until the end. However, Arthur saw that the gang is pretty much done and wants at least some people to get saved from this, and he chose John. And this theory could be backed up by some dialogue. For example, a very small dialogue can be seen in the New South after the fishing session. He simply says, I, but then corrects himself to say we so he doesn't expose himself. In chapter 5, he mentions that he believes there is a rat. But why? Again, it's very simple. He wants to remove as many gang members as he wants, and his next target was Abigail. After returning from Guarma, Dutch can be seen saying some random-ass chess moves. But it ain't that random. The move he's referring to is literally called the Dutch defense, where the player sacrifices all the pieces for the king, in this instance, Dutch to win. And if you still don't believe me that this was his plan, I can show you the time where Dutch actually admitted that John was meant to be hanged.
You think I don't know what you're saying to people? I just don't know why we're doing any of this. Why? Why? Because I say so! I am done explaining myself to you! You want to be the general? You don't have the grit! Grit? That what you call this? How did the Pinkertons know about the bank job in Saint Denis, John? You want to tell me that? If you really think that, you are gone in the head. This is why I told them to let you rot in jail!
And the last piece to fall, you guessed, it was Arthur. But this begs the question, why did Dutch kill Micah at the end? Well, it's very simple. He saw that there is nothing left for him anymore. The money isn't important to him anymore. He realized that his whole plan simply just didn't work. So he finally put the nail on the coffin himself by just killing Micah. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe, as it does help me out a lot. If you want to see more videos on some of the characters where I go to their backstory and the reason why they're there, whatever, I'll do them. But I'll see you tomorrow for a new video. Mwah!